What is a world where heroes and demon lords fight to the death, and a world where demons and angels are recuperating their numbers after a war have in common? More than you think, less than you know. Yo, what's up, going on? 99 here. Welcome back to Anime Comparisons, the show where I overthink fictional worlds so you don't have to. In today's comparison, we'll be taking a look at Highschool DxD and the Testament of a New Sister Devil. We'll be comparing their plots and characters. Without further ado, let's dive on in. We start off, as we always start off, by analyzing the main characters. This is the biggest difference between the two shows. Whereas both Basara and Issei are lovable, perverted, demon-adjacent teenagers, emotionally, they are operating on completely different wavelengths. Starting with everyone's favorite pervert, Issei Hyodo. Issei starts Highschool DxD as basically the worst person you could ever trust with supernatural powers. He's immature, loud, impulsive, and motivated almost entirely by boobs. And somehow, that's exactly why he works. Because beneath all the degeneracy, Issei is weirdly genius. He's not pretending to be cool. He's not secretly a mastermind. He's just painfully honest about who he is. Unfortunately, who he is a guy who would absolutely die to impress the girl, which he literally does in the first episode. Basara, meanwhile, feels like the evolved version of this archetype. He's calm, capable, confident, the kind of protagonist who walks into a room already knowing that he is him. Where Issei feels like a teenage boy accidentally stumbling into power, Basara feels like someone who has already survived another anime before this one even started. He's less comedic and more intense. The show treats him less like an underdog and more like a dangerous weapon, barely pretending to be normal. Basically, Issei feels like your chaotic friend discovering confidence for the first time. Basara feels like a divorced dad who is trapped in a teenager's body. Next, let's talk about the busty, red-haired demon heroines. No, not these Sarah. That's right, we're starting with Rias Gremory. Rias Gremory is introduced almost like a fantasy. She's beautiful, powerful, confident. Basically, every scene she's in feels like the anime equivalent of someone saying, "Yeah, bro, trust me, she's perfect." But what makes Rias work isn't just the fan service, it's the warmth. She doesn't just save Issei physically, she gives him somewhere to belong. The Occult Research Club isn't just a harem setup for Issei. It's the first place where he genuinely feels valued, and honestly, that's why the relationship works so well. Because beneath all the comedy and chaos, Rias actually believes in him, before he believes in himself. She sees potential in this loud, awkward idiot long before he even becomes powerful, which is honestly incredible foresight considering episode 1, Issei operates like a raccoon discovering pornography for the first time. Then we have Mio Nares. I am not good with the pronunciation of that last name. Mio. We have Mio. Mio, meanwhile, comes into the story completely differently. Where Rias feels composed and emotionally secure, Mio feels unstable, like someone carrying way too much responsibility while desperately pretending she isn't terrified of it. She's technically powerful, a future demon lord candidate, but emotionally, she's vulnerable from the very beginning. And that vulnerability changes everything about her relationship with Basara. Because Mio doesn't represent comfort the way Rias does. She represents temptation, dependency, danger. Her connection with Basara is immediate, intense, and kind of insane. DxD slowly builds romantic tension over time. Testament looked at pacing and said, "Nah, let's psychologically and spiritually bind these people together and see what happens." Which, to be fair, when you have a a master-servant contract kinda forces that upon you. Alright, now we need to talk about the actual powers. Because Highschool DxD and Testament of a Sister New Devil don't just give their protagonists random anime abilities. Their powers basically tell you who these characters are. Issei gets the boosted gear, a sacred dragon artifact built around growth, ambition, and overwhelming power. Basra gets the vanishing sift, a technique so absurdly broken it feels like someone looked at the concept of limits and took it personally. Starting off with Issei's boosted gear. The boosted gear is honestly one of the smartest power systems in modern ecchi anime. At first glance, it's simple. Every 10 seconds, Issei's power doubles. And it sounds ridiculously overpowered, because it is. But what makes the boosted gear interesting isn't just the scaling, it's the symbolism behind it. The gear reflects Issei himself, a guy who starts weak, insecure, and constantly underestimated. Grows stronger through persistence, emotion, and sheer stupidity-fueled determination. Seriously, this man has weaponized hormones at least 3 separate times. The boosted gear rewards growth. Every fight pushes Issei further. Every emotional breakthrough unlocks another evolution. It's basically a sewn-in protagonist power hidden inside of an ecchi anime that's powered by boobs. And Drake's presence matters too, because unlike a lot of anime power systems, Issei's strength isn't lonely. The boosted gear becomes a partnership, a constant reminder that Issei never rises alone. Now, Basra's Banishing Sift is completely different, where the boosted gear is explosive and straightforward. Banishing Sift feels surgical. It's not about endlessly stacking power, it's about domination, control, overwhelming force applied with precision, which fits Basra perfectly. Because unlike Issei, Basra already starts competent. He doesn't stumble into becoming powerful, he enters the story already carrying the burden of strength. Basically, Issei fights like a guy discovering cheat codes for the first time. Basra fights like he's already been banned from 3 different tournaments. Banishing Sift reflects Testament's darker tone. The ability isn't flashy because it represents growth. It's terrifying because it represents resistance. It represents restraint. Basra constantly feels like someone's holding back a natural disaster. Now, we need to talk about the rest of their harems, which is gonna take a while. So grab a snack, get yourself a nice 0 sugar Pepsi, and buckle down, because we are about to compare Asia Argento and Yuki Nonaka, Akino Himajima, and Maria Neru, the same thing with Mio's last name. Konako Tujo? Konako, and Kurima Noaka, Rosfiza, and Chisato Hashigawa? I'm not good with names. And as well, we will be comparing Zenobia and Zest. Let's start by comparing Asia and Yuki. Asia, she's kind, gentle, emotionally sincere, the type of character who sees good in people even when the world gives her every reason not to. Her entire story is built around rejection. She's punished for helping others, thrown away by the very system that was supposed to protect her. And that's why her relationship to Issei matters so much. Because Issei and the Occult Research Club give Asia something she never really had before: acceptance. She doesn't love Issei because he's powerful. She loves Issei because she feels safe with Issei. Which is honestly impressive considering Issei spends half the series screaming about how much he wants to touch boobs like a malfunctioning smoke detector. Yuki Nonaka approaches vulnerability from the exact opposite direction. Where Asuya wears her emotions openly, Yuki suppresses hers constantly. She's composed, reserved, the kind of character who always feels like she's thinking 3 layers deeper than what she actually says. But underneath that control is someone carrying loneliness, uncertainty, and emotional fear. That's what makes Yuki interesting. She doesn't naturally trust emotional connection. She has to learn it. That's what makes Yuki interesting. She doesn't naturally trust or have emotional connections. She has to learn to have both. Akeno is one of the most dangerous kinds of anime characters. Someone who's emotionally composed while being completely unhinged underneath the surface. She's elegant, playful, confident, the kind of character who can go from comforting Issei to electrocuting someone with enough enthusiasm to concern a therapist. Akeno flirts like she's trying to legally qualify as a psychological warfare. But that's what makes Akeno work. Beneath all that teasing and all the sensuality, there's actual pain. Her struggle with her fallen angel heritage, her relationship with her father, her fear of vulnerability. She hides it underneath the confident persona she projects. And that's important because Akeno doesn't just tease Issei for fun. A lot of the time, flirting is how she keeps emotional distance. If she's joking, she doesn't need to be vulnerable. And then we have Maria. Maria operates on almost the exact same wavelength. She's playful, seductive, emotionally intelligent, and completely aware of the effects she has on other people. But unlike Akeno, Maria feels way more deliberate. Akeno teases because it's part of her personality. Maria teases because she's actively trying to control the room. She doesn't flirt casually, she flirts like a supervillain testing the security systems. And underneath all that confidence is someone who's constantly observing everyone around her. She understands emotional tension better than almost anyone else in Testament. That's why she's always punishing people, especially Basara. That's why she's always pushing people, especially Basara. Because Maria knows that pressure reveals feelings faster than comfort ever could. Early on, Konako is probably the most emotionally distant member of the occult research club. She rarely shows emotion. She barely talks when she doesn't need to. And every time Issei says something stupid, which is almost everything Issei says, she looks like she's reconsidering humanity as a concept. Which honestly, with some of the stuff Issei says, that's fair. But Konako's distance isn't because she's cold or unfeeling. It's because she's scared. Her struggle with her Neko Mata heritage leaves her terrified of losing control. She spends much of the series suppressing parts of herself because she's afraid of what might happen if she embraces them. And that's really Konako's story. Learning that accepting who you are isn't weakness. Accepting who you are is freedom. Then we have Kurumi. Kurumi starts in a very similar place. Like Konako, she's reserved. defensive, and not exactly looking to trust anyone. She doesn't wear her heart on her sleeve. Actually, most of the time, she acts like she would rather throw the sleeve away entirely. But beneath the guarded exterior is someone carrying a tremendous amount of emotional weight. Kurumi constantly struggles between projecting herself and allowing others into her. Kurumi constantly struggles between protecting herself and allowing others into her life. She's cautious because experience has taught her to be. Trust doesn't come naturally to her. It has to be earned. Now we move on to the best girl of Highschool DxD. Roswitha arrives in Highschool DxD with a pretty impressive resume. Former Valkyrie, a servant of Odin, a powerful magician. Basically the kind of character you expect to be cool, mysterious, and completely untouchable. But instead it turns out that she is one of the most relatable characters in the entire series. Roswitha is constantly dealing with problems that feel weirdly normal compared to everyone around her. She's worried about money. She's worried about her job. She's worried about ending up alone and single. Which means while everyone else is fighting dragons, fallen angels, other demons, whatever the fuck they're fighting that week, Roswitha is fighting other people at the dollar store for the best deal. And that's what makes her so likable. Underneath the magic and the mythology, she's raw. She feels the most human out of everyone in Highschool DxD. Chisato serves a very Chisato serves a very similar role in Testament of a Sister New Devil. She's one of the few characters who constantly feels grounded, while Basra's household is dealing with demon politics, supernatural wars, and enough emotional and sexual tension to destroy and pout. While Basra's household is dealing with demonic politics, supernatural wars, and enough emotional and sexual tension to power a small city, Chisato often feels like the one person attempting to maintain a sense of normalcy. But don't mistake that for weakness. Chisato is incredibly dependable. She's someone people can lean on when things start falling apart. She provides stability in a story that constantly threatens to spiral into chaos. She's also had huge knockers her entire life. When we first meet Zenobia, she's essentially a living weapon. A church exorcist raised to destroy demons without question. She has a mission, she has a purpose, and she has absolutely no idea how normal human beings function. Seriously, Zenobia approaches social situations with all the subtlety of a missile strike. But that's what makes her fascinating. But for most of her life, Zenobia's identity was completely tied to the church. She believes its teachings, she follows its orders, she never questions the path laid out for her. Then, that world falls apart. When Zenobia discovers the reality of the conflict between angels, devils, and fallen angels, she loses the foundation her entire life was built on. Suddenly she isn't fighting for faith anymore. She's fighting because she chooses to. And that's Zenobia's real story. A warrior who is learning to become a person. Zest starts from a very similar place. Like Zenobia, she's someone whose life revolves around strength, loyalty, and duty. She isn't driven by dreams. She isn't chasing personal ambition. She's devoted to a cause and willing to sacrifice everything for it. And that's what makes her dangerous, because Zest doesn't hesitate. When she commits to something, she commits to it completely. The kind of person who hears the phrase, bad idea, and immediately starts sprinting towards it. But underneath all that discipline is someone who has spent so much time serving others that she barely knows what she wants herself. Like Zenobia, Zest has to learn that there's more to life than simply fulfilling a role that was given to you. Now, on paper, these two stories sound identical. A teenage boy gets dragged into a hidden world of demons. He meets a powerful red-haired supernatural girl, gets caught in a conflict between multiple factions, builds a harem, becomes ridiculously overpowered, and somehow ends up responsible for saving said world. So naturally you'd assume that these stories are just a copy and paste of one another, which they kind of are, but there's also things that separate them. Highschool DxD begins with one of the most iconic opening episodes in ecchi anime. It has the main character dying. Issei goes on a date, he gets stabbed, and then he dies, and then he's recruited into a demon peerage. Honestly, that's probably the worst first date in anime history. From there, DxD follows a very traditional, almost shonen-like structure. Each season introduces a new threat, a new faction, a new challenge for Issei to overcome. The world is ever expanding. What starts as a conflict between devils, angels, and fallen angels slowly becomes something much more bigger. Dragons, mythologies, gods, ancient threats. Each season feels like another chapter in an ever-growing book. Testament of a New Sister Devil takes a very different approach in telling a very similar story. Instead of slowly expanding outwards, it starts by bringing the conflict directly to Basara's home. Literally, almost immediately, Basara is responsible for protecting Mio, a future Demon Lord candidate who is being hunted by multiple factions. Where DxD constantly introduces new corners of its universe and new threats, Testament focuses on escalating the danger around a smaller group of characters. The stakes become increasingly personal. The threats aren't just world-ending villains, they're people connected directly to Mio, Basara, and their past. And this is the biggest difference between the two stories. DxD is an adventure. The plot is constantly moving forward. New places, new enemies, new powers. The world keeps getting bigger. Testament is a home story. The plot revolves around Basara keeping the people he cares about safe. Everything always comes back to Mio, to family. Everything comes back to responsibility. When most people compare Highschool DxD and the Testament of a New Sister Devil, the conversation usually starts and ends with the fan service. But I'm not most people. I'm Golden the Austin 99, and I overthink animes in fictional worlds, so you don't have to. Both animes have loads of fan service. Both don't hide said fan service. This video is out on 6/9, and it leaves the question, which do you prefer? Highschool DxD or Testament of a New Sister Devil? Are you Team Rias or Team Mio? That'll be all for this video. Please remember to like this video, to leave a comment, and to subscribe for more. Peace.